You say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Resilient Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Deshanae Singleton, and on this show, you will hear stories of inspiration, resilience, and success from women who've overcome the challenges of life and pursued their dreams.
And when I don't belong, oh, you say I'm yours, and I believe.
Welcome everybody to the Resilient Woman Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, my dear friend, Stephanie Dillon.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, Dillon, show him the ring.
Oh, yes.
Boom. All right, cool. So Stephanie, how you doing? What you been up to lately? Let the listeners know.
Yes. So, well, me and my husband and my new baby girl that I just had 3 months ago, Alice Dean, are getting ready to be missionaries. And we're going with a ministry called Freedom Ministries. They've been established for 40 plus years in the indigenous part of Mexico. Just preaching the good word to the villages out there and planting churches and community and just really loving on the people there in Mexico. My husband was a missionary with them for 5 years previously before we got married, before we met. And he had taken some time off to go back to school. And he just graduated back in November. We had our baby in December, and then we have decided to partner with them, and we're going to be starting Women and Children's Center out in South Texas, and we are really excited to launch that. And we're actually moving at the end of this month. Right now we're here in California, itinerating and speaking at a few churches, and that's a little bit.
That's super exciting. Oh my God, me and Stephanie go back to undergrad studies at SUM Bible College. We met in 2015. 2015, we were roommates. We went on mission trips together. We went on, I don't know, we've done a lot together. I went to her wedding in New Mexico. We just go back, and I'm just so happy to have Stephanie on the show today. We're excited to hear her story. Before we get started, is there anything else you wanna share with the people?
No, I think that's it. I'm sure that we'll have a lot to share during this interview. So, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. Excited to see you, and I'm just praying that my story touches somebody out there that's listening and is able to give them, just insight or encouragement or anything that's going to help them along their journey in life.
Yeah, that's good. So you're going to launch with your husband in Freedom Ministries in South Texas, and you're going to be helping women, mothers, and also children.
Yes.
Some of the women have came out of lifestyles where they had maybe like a background in human trafficking, or they previously have been sexually exploited. So kind of tell us how you got so passionate to work with women who've experienced that lifestyle, or even coming out of that background. Yeah. How did that passion start?
Yeah, so we'll also be serving women that have experienced addiction, or just maybe even be in the judicial system and are being prosecuted into a program. And so we're going to be able to be that gap for them to where they can get restoration, and it's all familiar with me because I too was in a very abusive relationship for 10 years off and on, and within that relationship, I just had experienced abuse and even being exploited, and I'm able to now help women come out of that, and I'm just really excited. And it's even more awesome to think of who I'm married to now, and his story and my story, and us colliding and being able to serve the population.
So because you were able to come out of that lifestyle yourself, now you're giving back to women. Now you're paying it forward. You're reaching back. You're like the Harriet Tubman for people who had been human trafficking, which is a form of slavery. That, that's what they kind of say. But tell us about, how did you even get in that lifestyle in the beginning? How did that all begin for you?
Yeah, so I think it was a gradual thing. I don't even necessarily know if the knew what he knew. And so, I mean, it started off, we were, you know, very much in love, and he um, was really good to me in the beginning, and never would have expected anything. And then it just got to a point where he started getting abusive, and um, and taught me things of the street life. And I was very ignorant about that kind of lifestyle, and it was just something that he knew. It was how he survived. It was his survival mode. And so yeah, so he kind of taught me about the street life and how people survived and what they did without means, and um, normalized it for me. And I think I was so in love that I was very vulnerable. And because of what I've been through in my past, being abused, sexually later, early in my life by a few family members, it really, put me on that path of being vulnerable. And anyhow, so I think it was about 2 years in, he started getting abusive, and then it just started off being, you know, um, going to the casino and talking to guys, just getting money from them so we could, use that money to either get drugs or a place to stay or whatever it was. And then it ended up being little by little convincing me to do things for money. And um, in that time, I had basically burned all my bridges with my family. And, they didn't really know what was going on. They didn't know the extent of the abuse. They didn't know um, the things he was convincing me of or any of that. And now that I've been serving in this population, I realized that it was a grooming process, and it took years of grooming me into convincing me that this was okay, or that this is what we had to do in order to survive. I didn't see a way out. I didn't have my family by my side because I had, burned all my bridges and stole from them, or, done whatever I did. And so, eventually one day it was actually before I had met him. I was out, and I was dating another guy. He told me his cousins were going to come over, and we were going to go out and party. And so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, partying it up. I was not living for the Lord. Just was 18, just moved to Arizona. I was from a very small city, so this was a huge city, and I was just living life. And um, they ended up we were getting ready, and we ended up going out to this house, and we go into this bathroom, and these two girls were talking about what they were going to do. And then they turned to me, and they're like, do you want to do anything? And I'm like, really confused of what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they're like, well, we're going to do da 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 to get money. And I'm like, oh, I was so scared. At that point, I realized like what they were doing, what they were all about. And then it made me realize like, oh, they're doing this for my boyfriend. And then it kind of, just all these things started lining up, and I was like really scared at that point, and I knew I wasn't going to exchange sexual pleasures for money. And so at that point, I was just like, okay, it's time for me to leave. I ended up leaving, calling a friend that I knew, which happened to be my ex-boyfriend of 10 years. And he explained to me everything, that the guy I was with was a pimp, and they were trying to pimp me out, and they were trying to groom me. And to do that. And then so I really trusted this guy. I really felt like he wasn't ever going to do that to me. Like he had my best interest in mind.
Because he put you on game to the other guy.
Right. And so, so yeah, so, and like I said, it was 2 years before, you know, he had put me on the internet, and I had no idea what was going on. I just know we had no rent. We were about to get kicked out, and he had told me that somebody was coming over and I had to do X, Y, and Z. I just remember crying and being like, I don't want to do that. And before you know it, you know, he was abusing me, and I felt like I had no choice. And so that's when, you know, I did the first time I was exploited.
And so because it was like this gradual process, it was kind of hard to even think about, or you tell us, I don't want to assume what it was hard for, you know, for you, but what was going on through your mind? So that first incident happened, you didn't want to do it. What was going on in your head at that moment?
Well, at the moment, I just knew that if I didn't do it, that I was going to get hurt even more. And I also knew that I had nobody to turn to. My family was non-existent in my life. I was really addicted to him, and he was my idol. And so I was blinded. It was like I was blinded, and now that I know, it's actually called a trauma bond. And so you know, also I'm 18, so my mind is not fully developed. You know, your parental cortex is not fully developed till you're 25.
Okay, parental cortex. Okay.
And so, you know, you don't, and your parental cortex is what helps you decide what's right, what's wrong. If it's a stove is hot, you don't touch it. You know, all of those things that our parents are supposed to teach us. Well, he was, in that sense, coming in as my parent. And so he was teaching me, you know, it kind of got washed away what my parents told me right and wrong, and those morals and values. He was stepping in the role of it. And so in this population, you have to be very careful of that and keeping out for girls that are younger, because this is the kind of girls that the pimps look for. You know, they are looking for vulnerable girls that are young and that maybe not have a strong, you know, parent life, or that they're runaways. They're mad at their parents. They get them at that right time, even if they grow up in a good home, good values, or whatever the case might be. But in that time, I just really was scared and just felt like there was really no way out. You know, there was many times that he would threaten me with different things, had guns to my head, you know, would beat me. He would use the excuse of his kids. You know, he had to get to his kids, to, you know, get the money. And, you know, he also would use the excuse, if you don't do it, I'm going to find somebody that would. And at that point, you know, I was so in love with him, I thought. And, you know, I didn't want anybody else to replace me. I didn't know my value. I didn't know my worth. You know, I just basically was coerced into doing whatever he said to do. You know?
Yeah, and I like how you bring in, because not obviously, but I know that you've been in multiple roles where you've been able to get training to work with this specific population.
Yes.
And you're learning how, man, like this is the strategy they take, or this is the approach they use to go, you know, after certain women. So I'm kind of going on a little tangent here, but I guess, can you talk about the importance of like isolation, or the importance of how isolation can play a role in you going down a path that you would never go down if you were not in an isolated situation?
Yes, I think that whether the person that is doing the isolating that person realizes it or not, I'm not really sure of that. I think in most cases they do realize, you know, what they're doing, But I think in some cases they're just also, you know, they're reacting what they have seen in their lives, right? So whether it was their parents that kind of grew up in that lifestyle, their siblings, or, you know, their uncles or aunts, and they're just kind of, you know, survival mode. But yes, they do tend to, you know, make a girl think that they're the only ones that are there for them, that, you know, because of their family, you know, a lot of times drugs, you know, cause a role in this. And for me, myself, I was addicted to meth. And so I was already not in my state of mind, right state of mind. And so that adds a whole different layer on top. I mean, even weed, you know, I know a lot of people think, oh, it's natural. Well, let's just face it, they're not used, it's not just grown from the ground like God created weed. It's used with chemicals. But now it's just all scientific. I mean, they use different chemicals they add into it. So anyway, but
right.
I'm just saying that that might have been a tangent too. But
That's okay.
but you know, it definitely puts your mind in a different state, and you know, and you numb things, and you're able to forget what you're doing and kind of push through, you know. And but back to the isolation, that's a little bit of what they'll use, you know, those tactics, and then they will slowly show that your family is not worthy of your love because they weren't there for you when you were in this hard time, or, you know, they're not willing to help you, then that's not love. Or they're not willing to give you money, well, they don't care about you. And then it just makes you, you're like, well, that's true, he's the one that provides my food, he's the one that provides a place to stay. And even though that you may be the one that's doing the things to get the money, but they're the ones that are showing you love and affection at that time. And so you're not seeing your parents, you're not seeing, you know, what they're going through while you're out on the streets, or while you're going through an addiction. And so it causes isolation. Or it might be that some cases that they don't even have that family connection. And so maybe this is the first person that's ever showed them love, you know. And so that can also isolate them to only that person.
So there's a thought there like, oh, okay, my family is not doing this, but he is doing this. And it could be a she too.
Yes, definitely.
It could be a she too. So he or she is showing me all this love and compassion that I need. And this is also kind of a tangent, but I think it relates. Can you kind of talk about, because what's coming to my head is identity, right? So when you have voids, what role does identity, validation, what role does like knowing God play into all that? Because it's a void, right? And so we're looking for somebody to fill it. And,
yes.
and how does that relate to like identity, you know, God and
Yes. I think it definitely, knowing your identity in God, for me, is the biggest thing. I think when it comes to knowing your purpose in life and feeling enough. And I think for a lot of these girls, they don't know who they are, or they weren't taught Christian values, or even people that grew up in a Christian lifestyle, you know, may not really know the love that God truly has for them, and how we were created for a purpose, and we were created to do works of God, and to lift people up, and to be a family and a community, and, you know, having that personal relationship. Because we can believe in God all we want, and, you know, believe that Jesus died for our sins, and that's great, but there is a disconnect, you know, and you really have to have that relationship with God. And I feel like once you have that relationship with God, then he really starts to show you your identity and your worth. And then you're able to stand up and fight for righteousness, and know like, oh, okay, this is not right, and this is morally wrong. Okay, I need to turn away from this because I deserve better, because there is somebody out there that is going to give me the time and the respect that I deserve.
Whew. Come on, that you deserve. So that's so good. You were in that relation. How long did that go? That relationship that.
On and off for 10 years. There was times where I would, leave him. I mean, he even taught me about Jesus. So it kind of put a little twist on everything. And he taught me, that Jesus died for my sins and that I could be forgiven and that the way we were living was not right. And I should leave him because he's not living out what God has called him to. And in that, I, justified in my mind, like, oh, well, God's going to bring him to him and, everything's going to be okay one day. We're going to get out of this, so I just kept having that in my mind, and at times, I would leave him, go back to New Mexico where I'm from, get my own business going, do really good, have a job. I had a cleaning business, so I would get that going and I would get an apartment, a car, and do everything in the matter of months. And
she's a boss like that still to this day. Like, anyway, go ahead.
So, and then he would go and get clean and go to rehab or move to his dad's and be going to church. And I thought, okay, he's actually following the Lord, and I would fall in that category of going back. And they say, usually an abused, either whether it's battered women or girls that are in addiction with an abusive man, or if they're exploited, they go back to them 7 times. Wow. And I really believe that's true. That's proven itself true. Working in this field, I've seen it time and time again. But anyhow, so, I would leave him and then he would be doing good and I would bring him back. And it wouldn't be a matter of time before it went all down the hole, And so anyway, that went on for about 10 years or so. And then there was just this one day where he was out. His kids were actually visiting in Arizona, and I was with them at his sister's house. And we had gotten into it, me and his sister. And she basically was like, you have till 1 tomorrow to leave. And she would kick me out. And it was just a miscommunication, but now I look back and I'm thinking it was just all God.
Ooh, he just, it was God.
And so I called my mom. I've called my mom many times to help me. She wasn't going to help me because I had, faked I was going to go to rehab just so I can have a place to stay. Or, I would say, oh, I'm leaving him, but really I wasn't. I just needed a place to stay for the night or whatever it was. I lied to her so many times, but for some reason she trusted me this time. And she said, I'll buy you a plane ticket to New Mexico. And she got my sister gave me a phone, an old phone of hers. She said, I'll hook it up for you, pay 1 month's phone bill and give you $80 and a bus ticket. And that's what she did. So I went to New Mexico and I had been clean for about 2 weeks. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to leave him. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to rehab. I'm going to get right. I didn't know that there's places out there like Teen Challenge where you can go to a program and get your life right. But for some reason I did know. Yeah. And it was like, I never heard of him, but I knew it was out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And now I look back again and like, it was just God, putting it in my heart and my mind. And so I ended up going to my friend's house. I asked her to come pick me up from the Greyhound. And then I was just praying. I was asking God to show me, because in the course of my addiction, probably for the last like 3 years of my addiction, I was really seeking God. And in that addiction, he would keep bringing pastors to my tables as I was waiting tables. He would bring pastors, or he would bring, just these little signs, or somebody would stop me and say, Jesus loves you. And I knew God was just, showing me himself. I was praying for things. I was praying for things and they would come to pass. And it was out of the ordinary things that, you knew it was God. Like he showed up. And so I started realizing my worth, I think, in those last 3 years, and realized, I wasn't really concerned about what this guy was doing. He was out with this girl and that girl, and doing the same thing he was doing to me, you know, for drugs or for money to go play at the casino or whatever it was. And I used to be so caught up in caring what he was doing that that's all my focus and energy was on that. And then there just came a point where I didn't really care anymore. And I was like watching the Christian channel or reading the Bible. And it was just this intimate time with God. And so I had, back to when I was in New Mexico at my friend's house, I had called Joyce Myers, their prayer line, and I was asking, God to show me where it is I'm supposed to go. But at the moment I had prayed that, my mom had texted me and she's like, why don't you, my mom, was on this journey with me, and she said, why don't you call one of those prayer lines and have them pray for you? And I'm like, I just did that, and I knew it was God, and then I had looked up a whole bunch of different programs and had it written down in a notebook. And my mom, I saw Teen Challenge and it was circled, and I didn't know what it was. And my mom had texted me and said, oh, somebody just told me about Teen Challenge. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. Another God thing. So I knew that I was supposed to call that. And I had called a few before and a few after. All the beds were full. Nobody had availability. And that was the only one that did. And it was here in San Jose, California, Northwest Cal Teen Challenge. And I had a bunch of things I had to get done before I went. And so I reconnected with my dad. And that was awesome, being able to reconnect with my dad and my brothers. And so I had that time with them, and I ended up coming out to San Jose and started Teen Challenge.
Man,
yes.
I love that progression. So deep inside of you, you were wanting freedom. You were wanting to like change your lifestyle. Like something changed inside of you, it sounds like. And then like God would meet you in these different moments of time, whether you were waiting, whether it was your mom, whether it was calling the prayer line. Like it was like, man, like God, I'm having this inner desire, and then like God is meeting me every time with this inner desire.
Yes.
I love that. So it was an opportunity for you to go to Teen Challenge, move from New Mexico or Arizona.
Both. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, she in both. So yeah, so you came to San Jose, you went to Teen Challenge, you were able to graduate from that program, and you came out. Tell me how you came out. What was this new Stephanie like?
Yeah, in Teen Challenge, I didn't even realize that I was trafficked. Like I had no idea. And in Teen Challenge, the Lord really showed me that. And I had this desire to help women not to get to that point, to have to go down the road that I went through. And excuse me.
You need water? I got some.
Oh yes, I do. It's okay.
I'm water. Do you need water?
It's okay.
All right.
So so I, in Teen Challenge, I just really had this desire to help women out of what I came out of. And I had this desire to just show women their worth. And so I had finished Teen Challenge. I was actually working as an intern. I helped start one of the new homes there at the boutique. And I was the house mom, and learned, my leadership skills, and learned I had leadership skills, and they were really helping me define those leadership skills. And so it was a really awesome experience for me. And I had a desire to go to Bible college, and, not really knowing where to go or what to do, but somebody at Teen Challenge had introduced me to SUM Bible College. And I went to go check it out one day, and I was asking God, they would give me a tour, and they showed me around Oakland and showed me around the campus. They had a dorm, and I was just like, man, this is awesome. And I was in the back of the van that we were driving. I was like, Lord, just please, like, give me a sign. I closed my eyes, and I open my eyes, I look up, and there's this huge sign that says sign. And I'm like, okay, well, I think that's my sign. And I just knew that was God. And so, and then I ended up putting my application in, and I went to SUM that next um, August or whatever. I finished in May. It was my birthday that I finished Teen Challenge, May 1st. And then it was that next August that I started SUM.
Wow. See, that's powerful. And you, during your time of SUM, you were able to work with multiple ministries. You were able to work even in Oakland on International Boulevard with a ministry, Love Never Fails. You also kind of tell us about that. Tell us how you got connected with them and how you even you were like, what is that called? When you get other people?
Yes, recruiting.
She recruited me.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I found out about this ministry that used to go, or they probably still do. It's been a while. I haven't connected with them, but they go out to the street of International, which is
in Oakland, California.
And it's a very high trafficked street for gang violence, trafficking, just really, any of that sort of thing. And so I was just like, I'm going to do that. That's what I do. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm called to do. I need to get out there and I need to figure out how I can get involved. And so I went on an outreach with them, and, after talking to the leader and, kind of sharing a little bit of my story and whatnot, before I knew it, I had a job because I had my CDL, so I could drive a bus. And so they asked me if I could be the bus driver for their team and going out on the streets, and they would go to San Francisco. I mean, they go all over. But anyhow, and then it ended up being to where I would actually help them train the people that went out on the streets. And so, I was just trying to get all my friends at SUM involved, and we would go out to the streets. And I never got to experience a rescue, but I definitely got to experience some great things, and going out and praying with the girls on the streets, and giving them hope, and just showing them, sharing my story with them, and saying, I've been there, I get what you're going through, there's a way out, here's a number. We had bracelets we would give them that had a number on the inside if they wanted to get out. And which also can be very dangerous and scary at the same time for the girls and for us, for our team. So there was there was definitely, security following us, and we were always with, men that kind of stay in the background while we were talking to the girls. And so they did it very, very well structured and safe. But it was just an amazing time. And, I even met up with some of the girls when we would go on outreaches at SUM, and would see them out on the streets too in the daytime, and was able to connect with them and start a relationship. And, it was just a really awesome time in my life. So
yeah. Man, I remember those times. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what year I was in. Nevertheless, we were out there, and I had learned a lot, like, because Love Never Fails, they did a training, and they were like, correcting us, they're not called prostitutes, it's sexually exploited, like educating us. Like, you see these guys riding on the bikes, like, they're watching, like, and it just opened my mind too to another world, and I've seen it differently. And I also got to go to Puerto Rico with you. We worked with Teen Challenge out there, and you were able to lead us in that outreach at the what is it? In Bayamon, in the project housing. Yes. And can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so because of my connection with Teen Challenge, I had connected with another friend of mine that was a director out in Puerto Rico. And so I got a team together. We got 10 people, and we went out and we did a mission trip to Puerto Rico. And it was just really fruitful. I let everybody kind of come up with their...
like a lot of great things came out of that.
Yes, sorry. So I had an idea of basically getting everybody that was coming out on the team with us, and letting them come up with a creative idea that we can serve the people out there in Puerto Rico. And so Desi came up with a flash mob, which was really fun. And then we did, so, handed out food and prayed for people. And that was really awesome. And then one of our other friends came up with doing an outreach and doing pedicures, manicures, and having a sermon, or which is just speak about God and talk about a story. So I used my story and I talked to the women, and we did manicures and pedicures, and we just loved on them. We had food for them.
Women were crying. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Women were crying awesome after you shared your story.
Yes. And it was just amazing to see, there was somebody that the leader that was the director of Puerto Rico, he had called me like a month later and said that some girl was really touched by the way I was, my story and what I had been through and where I had been and where I'm now. And she got enough courage to leave her boyfriend. So that was just like, so exciting here. Just, that, it's a testimony is so powerful, and we can use it in any situation.
Testimony is a story.
Yes. And we can use our story, and we can, share it with others, and it can make a difference, And so we had a great time out. We were able to help out with VBS out there and creating, their props and different things. And we actually got to see the sea turtles hatch, which was really cool.
Oh my God. That was beautiful. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So it was just a really great time, and we were able to just serve the Lord and, yeah.
And so from the moment I met Stephanie, like, she's just been super, like, determined, super gung ho, like, on, man, this is what I feel called to do. This is what I feel like my purpose is. This is what I'm going to do. And every time I catch up with her, she's doing something along the lines of, serving women or helping women. You moved to Texas, you got married, and then you were able to work with the ministry that you were, tell us about that transition too.
Yeah, so I'd love to. So I had moved out to Texas, and eventually I, was living with some roommates, and then I eventually got married. So me and my husband had an apartment. It was my last year of college. I needed to find an internship, so I actually interned with a few ministries that served sexually exploited women, and one of them was Redeem Ministries, and they were just doing a lot of outreaches to teach women, to teach the community of what sexual exploitation means, and so a lot of trainings and that sort. And then they ended up shutting down that Dallas location. They just serve now in Houston, and so I had to find another internship. So I found Alive at Last, and Alive at Last, they help women that are exploited come up with mentors. And so whether they're in a program or they're in a shelter or wherever they're at, and so they kind of partner with the ministries that are already created, and then they come alongside and get them mentors. And so I helped create the canvas for them, and just did some things in my internship and learned a lot. It was a wonderful time. And then she introduced me when we were at a coalition meeting, which is a coalition meeting for sexually exploited communities to get together and fight human trafficking. It's kind of a non-disclosed location where they meet, and you have to have connections to be in this coalition. And so there was a somebody that was talking there at that meeting. It was the leader of a ministry called Poema, and I just went up to them and said, hey, I'm getting ready to graduate. This is my background. I need a job. And and they said, we're just looking for administration right now, but we'll keep you in mind. And then a little bit later, they actually came up to me and said, well, actually, we're creating this position, and we would love to talk to more about it. And I'm like, awesome, give them my number. Next thing you know, my birthday, May 1st, she gives me a call and says, like, basically, when can you start? I'm like, okay. So we ended up moving a little closer. and I started there and was able to be the safe house coordinator for Poema. And then I served there for almost 3 years. And it's an amazing program. They have transitional living now. But basically, what I was kind of the program director in a sense, and I was help figuring out how we're going to structure the program and helped women come into the program and was their caseworker and walked alongside of them and helped them get involved in work or counseling or equine therapy or Bible studies or community.
Connected them to resources.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we had a safe house, or they still do have a safe house, and it's just thriving there. And we kind of changed the program to programming. Now it's transitional living. And so it was just a wonderful time. I was able to learn so much in that time serving. So
That's, man, and I remember just hearing about that, you telling me, and I was just so excited. I'm like, yes, like of course you're doing that. Of course you're working with them. Of course, you got connected to do, your passion. But what would you say to women out there? Because we want the listeners to be encouraged, inspired, and uplifted so they can follow their dreams. What would you say to women who are saying, man, I know what my purpose is. I feel like I know what my calling is, but I can't get that momentum. And I think that's something that you had, this momentum. Okay, I did this. Now I'm doing this. Okay, that's done. Okay, now I'm doing this.
Yes.
What would your advice be to women who are trying to get that momentum and not have this, I did this and then a year break and I'm unmotivated? What would you say to them?
Yes, I would say keep going at it. Like, the thing is God is awesome, and he will have opportunities that will come to you, and he will have opportunities that you have to search for. And I think that it's really important for us to be good stewards of our time, and for us to not just have that vision and know, like, I'm going to get to that vision. I have this dream, I have this vision, I'm going to get to it. Well, you got to work towards it, and you got to really be determined, and you really got to get yourself in, put yourself out there, get yourself out of your comfort zone and ask questions, volunteer. And it's not get involved in anything around you, because when I moved to Texas, I didn't know anybody that served the sexual exploited population. I didn't know any ministries. I didn't have any friends that knew any ministries. I didn't, I just got on the computer and I just started looking it up and emailed them until I got a feedback and kept emailing them.
How many emails?
I probably did about 10 or 15 and had to follow up with them. And, and it was very few far between that people actually kind of reached back to me, which I was surprised. But finally, I got that one that did. And I feel like sometimes we, even, people that are in Bible college or people that are looking for their next step, you have to really go out there and kind of find whatever it is that you have passionate about and volunteer or get connected with them in some way, somehow, and keep yourself active in that. You can't just sit back and say, oh, well, God will show me, well, he will show you. I definitely believe that, but we also have to be active.
Yeah. And how did you stay motivated?
How did I stay motivated?
When you weren't hearing back from people and you followed up on email, how did you stay motivated?
I think I knew that God had a plan for my life. And if I kept that in my mind, and I kept that saying, the enemy does not want us to excel. He just doesn't.
The adversary, the devil.
If you keep reminding yourself, that for me, this is what works for me.
Yeah.
Keep reminding myself that the enemy is not on my side. And he's going to try to put roadblocks. He's going to try to convince me that I'm not doing the right thing, that I'm not pursuing the right avenues, or I'm not pursuing the right, whatever, the vision. And I had to keep reminding myself I am, and that I had to keep trying, even if I doubted myself, even if I was listening to those voices, and I think that it really just took me stepping out and um, ignoring those voices, ignoring those um, doubts, I guess, or being incompetent of, myself, or not having self-esteem. I just had to keep all that on the back burner and just keep pushing through. And it's not always easy. I mean, there's always times, where maybe I'm tired and don't feel like reading my Bible or whatever it is, like, but you just got to push through. And or you might be down, so, oh my gosh, I haven't read my Bible for 3 days or a week or whatever it might be. And you're like, oh, well, I feel so guilty. And then you just don't do it again, and it just becomes
a big spiral.
And you just really got to pick up and keep going and forget about yesterday and the mistakes you made yesterday and just think about today. Today's a new day, and I can still become everything that I've have passion for and that's in my mind and my heart today.
Yes. Ooh, looking forward, forgetting yesterday. Let's go. Let's put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
I like how you said that too. You said there's some things that God will bring to us, but it's some things that we need to put ourselves out there. And you did that, and I love that. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners before we end?
I just really enjoyed this time doing this. I'm glad I was able to do it here on person, not on Zoom. That I'm here right now and visiting in California. But I would just say, follow your dreams. Put yourself out there, like we've been talking about. There's nothing that you've done that you're too far come that you cannot overcome.
That's good.
And there is purpose for you, and it doesn't matter your past. It doesn't matter if you were all for God and you fell back. And I'll be honest, there's been times where I have relapsed, and that does not stop me from becoming to keep going. And you just keep going and you keep pursuing God, and God is a forgiving God. And as long as you are pushing through, you're gonna make it, and know that you have value. You have value and purpose.
That's good. Whew, come on. So where can listeners find you online? Your Instagram, Facebook?
So my I don't even know what it is. What is it? So my Instagram is Wahini. Let me see. It is Wahini033, and then my Facebook is just Stephanie Dillon. We also are on Freedom Ministries website. It's where we're now going into ministry.
Yeah, tell us how we can donate and support you financially as you and your husband and baby Alice are moving to South Texas.
Yes. So yeah, we would love y'all to check us out on freedomministries.us. If you go down to missionaries, you'll see us there on the website. And so there's a little bio on us right there, and then also if you are interested in donating, there you go to the donations, and then you put in the memo Stephanie and Evan Dillon, and that way they know that donation goes to us specifically, because there's multiple missionaries that serve Freedom Ministries. So.
Yes. Hey. Stephanie, so glad that we were able to have you on the show today. I'm taking mental notes too. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's make it happen. But yes, girl, love you. Super excited for everything that God has for your family in South Texas and in Mexico. Yes. We love you guys out there. Thank you for listening in.
You say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say